Looks like your brain hurts. That's a sad story.
If we look at our own brain, which is an interesting illustrative example, in your work with TensorFlow and trying to design deep learning architectures, do you think about the brain at all? Maybe from a hardware designer perspective, if you could change something about the brain, what would you change or do?
Funny question.
Like, how would you
So
do
your
a better
brain is
job?
really weird.
Yeah,
Like, your cerebral cortex, where we think we do most of our thinking, is what, like 6 or 7 neurons thick?
yeah.
Like, that's weird. Like, all the big networks are way bigger than that,
Hmm.
like way deeper. So that seems odd. And then, when you're thinking, if the input generates a result you can lose, it goes really fast. But if it can't, that generates an output that's interesting, which turns into an input, and then your brain, to the point where you mull things over for days. And how many trips through your brain is that, right?
Hmm.
Like it's 300 milliseconds or something to get through 7 levels of neurons. I forget the number exactly, but then it does it over and over and over as it searches.
Hmm.
And the brain clearly looks like some kind of graph because you have a neuron with connections, and it talks to other ones, and it's locally very computationally intense, but it's also does sparse computations across a pretty big area.
There's a lot of messy biological type of things, and it's meaning like, first of all, there's mechanical, chemical, and electrical signals. That's all
Yeah,
that's going on.
yeah.
Then there's the asynchronicity of signals, and there's just a lot of variability that seems continuous and messy, and just a mess of biology. And it's
Mm-hmm.
unclear whether that's a good thing
Yeah.
or it's a bad thing, because if it's a good thing, then we need to run the entirety of the evolution. Well, we're gonna have to start with basic bacteria to create
But
something
imagine
efficient.
we could control. You could build a brain with 10 layers. Would that be better or worse, or more connections or less connections, or we don't know to what level our brains are optimized. But if I
Yeah,
was changing things, like
yeah,
you can only hold like 7 numbers in your head.
yeah.
Like, why not 100 or 1,000,000?
Never
Like,
thought of that.
like, and why can't we have like a floating point processor that can compute anything we want, like, and see it all properly? Like, that would be kind of fun. And why can't we see in 4 or 8 dimensions? Like, it's 3D is kind of a drag. Like, all the hard mass transforms are up in multiple dimensions. So you could imagine a brain architecture that you could enhance with a whole bunch of features that would be really useful for thinking about things.
It's possible that the limitations you're describing are actually essential for, like, the constraints are essential for creating like the depth of intelligence, like that, the ability to reason. You know,
Yeah, it's hard to say because, like, your brain is clearly a parallel processor. It's
yeah,
10 billion neurons talking to each other at a relatively low clock rate, but it produces something that looks like a serial thought process. It's a serial narrative in your head,
it's true.
right? But then there are people famously who are visual thinkers. Like, I think I'm a relatively visual thinker. I can imagine any object and rotate it in my head and look at it. And there are people who say they don't think that way at all. And recently, I read an article about people who say they don't have a voice in their head. They
Wow.
they can talk, but when it's like, well, what are you thinking? They'll describe something that's visual. So that's curious. Now, if you're saying, if we dedicated more hardware to holding information, like 10 numbers or 1,000,000 numbers, like, would that just distract us from our ability to form this kind of
Yeah,
singular identity,
like it dissipates somehow.
right? But maybe future humans will have many identities that have some higher level organization, but can actually do lots more things in parallel.
Yeah, there's no reason, if we're thinking modularly, there's no reason we can't have multiple consciousnesses
Yeah,
in one brain.
yeah, and maybe there's some way to make it faster so that the area of the computation could still have a unified feel to it, but while still having way more ability to do parallel stuff at the same time. Could definitely be improved.
Could be improved.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's pretty good right now. Actually, people don't give it enough credit. The thing is pretty nice.
Mhm.
The fact that the right ends seem to be un, give a nice like spark of beauty to the whole experience. So I don't know. I don't know if it can be improved easily.
It could be more beautiful.
I don't know how.
What do you mean? What do you mean? How? All the ways you can't imagine.
No, but that's the whole point. I wouldn't be able to imagine the fact that I can imagine ways in which it could be more beautiful means
So
that
do you know Ian Banks, his stories?
I
So the
yeah
the super smart AIs there mostly live in the world of what they call infinite fun because they can create arbitrary worlds.
yeah
So they interact in, the story has it, they interact in the normal world and they're very smart and they can do all kinds of stuff. And, a given mind can, talk to a million humans at the same time because we're very slow. And for reasons, artificial of the story, they're interested in people and doing stuff, but they mostly live in this other land of thinking.
my inclination is to think that the ability to create infinite fun will not be so fun.
That's sad. Why
Well,
there's so many things to do. Imagine being able to make a star, move planets around.
yeah, yeah. But because we can imagine that is why life is fun. If we actually were able to do it, it'd be a slippery slope where fun wouldn't even have a meaning because we just consistently
Mm-hmm.
desensitize ourselves by the infinite amounts of fun we're having. And the sadness, the dark stuff is what makes it fun. I think. But
Maybe
that could be the Russian.
it could be the fun makes it fun, and the sadness makes it bittersweet.
Yeah, that's true. Fun could be the thing that makes it fun. So, what do you think about the expansion, not through the biology side, but through the BCI, the brain computer interfaces? Yeah, you got a chance to check out the Neuralink stuff.
It's super interesting. Like humans like our thoughts to manifest as action. Like as a kid, like shooting a rifle was super fun. Driving a mini bike, doing things.
Mhm.
And then computer games, I think, for a lot of kids became the thing where they can do what they want. They can fly a plane, they can do this, they can do this, right? But you have to have this physical interaction. Now imagine, you could just imagine stuff and it happens, right? Like really richly and interestingly. Like we kind of do that when we dream. Like dreams are funny because like if you have some control or awareness in your dreams, like it's very realistic looking or not realistic, it depends on the dream, but you can also manipulate that. And what's possible there is odd, and the fact that nobody understands it's hilarious. But
Do you think it's possible to expand that capability through computing?
sure.
Is there some interesting, so from a hardware designer perspective, do you think it'll present totally new challenges in the kind of hardware required that so this hardware isn't standalone
Well,
computing,
just
it's
take it
networking
from
with
this.
the
So
brain,
today, computer games are rendered by GPUs,
right?
right? So, but you've seen the GAN stuff,
Yep.
right? Where trained neural networks render realistic images, but there's no pixels, no triangles, no shaders, no light maps, no nothing.
Hmm.
So the future of graphics is probably AI, right?
Yes.
Now that AI is heavily trained by lots of real data, right? So if you have an interface with a AI renderer, right? So if you say render a cat, it won't say, well, how tall is the cat and how big it'll render a cat. And you might say,
Hmm.
well, a little bigger, a little smaller,
Hmm.
make it a tabby, shorter hair, like you could tweak it. Like the amount of data you'll have to send to interact with a very powerful AI renderer could be low.
But the question is, for brain computer interfaces would need to render not onto a screen, but render onto the brain and directly. So that there's a
Well, it
bandwidth.
could do it both ways. I mean, our eyes are really good sensors. It could render onto a screen and we could feel like we're participating in it. They're gonna have, like the Oculus kind of stuff. It's going to be so good when a projection to your eyes, you think it's real. They're slowly solving those problems. And I suspect when the renderer of that information into your head is also AI mediated, they'll be able to give you the cues that you really want for depth and all kinds of stuff. Like your brain is partly faking your visual field, right? Like your eyes are twitching around, but you don't notice that. Occasionally they blank, you don't notice that. There's all kinds of things like you think you see over here, but you don't really see there.
Yeah.
It's all fabricated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, peripheral vision is fascinating.
so if you have an AI renderer that's trained to understand exactly how you see and the kind of things that enhance the realism of that experience, could be super real, actually. So I don't know what the limits to that are. But obviously, if we have a brain interface that goes inside your visual cortex in a better way than your eyes do, which is possible, it's a lot of neurons.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be even cooler.
But the really cool thing is that it has to do with the infinite fun that you're referring to, which is our brains seem to be very limited, and like you said, computations
Also very plastic.
Very plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a interesting combination.
No, the interesting open question is the limits of that neuroplasticity. Like how flexible is that thing? Because we haven't really tested it.
We know about the experiments where they put like a pressure pad on somebody's head and had a visual transducer pressurize it, and somebody slowly learned to see.
Yep.
It's
especially at a young age, if you throw a lot at it, like what can it can it complete? So can you like arbitrarily expand it with computing power? So connected to the internet directly somehow?
Yeah, the answer is probably yes.
So the problem with biology and ethics is like there's a mess there. Like us humans are perhaps unwilling to take risks into directions that are full of uncertainty. So it's
90% of the population is unwilling to take risks. The other 10% is rushing into the risks, unaided by any infrastructure whatsoever, and and that's where all the fun happens in society. There's been huge transformations, in the last couple thousand years.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I got a chance to interact with this Matthew Johnson from Johns Hopkins. He's doing this large scale study of psychedelics. It's becoming more and more. I've gotten a chance to interact with that community of scientists working on psychedelics, but because of that opened the door to me to all these what are they called, psychonauts, the people who, like you said, the 10% who are like, I don't care, I don't know if there's a science behind this, I'm taking this spaceship to if I'm be the first on Mars, I'll be psychedelics are interesting in the sense that in another dimension, like you said, it's a way to explore the limits of the human mind. Like, what is this thing capable of doing? Because you kind of, like when you dream, you detach it. I don't know exactly the neuroscience of it, but you detach your like reality from what your mind, the images your mind is able to conjure up, and your mind goes into weird places. And like entities appear somehow. Freudian type of like trauma is probably connected in there somehow, but you start to have like these weird, vivid worlds that like.
So, do you actively dream? Do you? Why not? I have like 6 hours of dreams a night. It's like really useful time.
I know. I haven't. I don't for some reason. I just knock out, and I have sometimes like anxiety-inducing kind of like very pragmatic, like nightmare type of dreams, but nothing fun. Nothing fun. I try. I unfortunately mostly have fun in the waking world, which is very limited in the amount of fun you can have.
It's not that limited either.
Yeah, that's maybe
we'll have to talk.
Yeah, I need instructions. Yeah,
there's like a manual for that. You might want
to. I'll look it up. I'll ask Elon. What did you dream?
Years ago, and I read about a book about how to have become aware in your dreams. I worked on it for a while. Like there's this trick about imagine you can see your hands and look out, and I got somewhat good at it. Like, but mostly when I'm thinking about things or working on problems, I prep myself before I go to sleep. It's like I pull into my mind all the things I want to work on or think about, and then that, let's say, greatly improves the chances that I'll work on that while I'm sleeping. And then I also basically asked to remember it. And I often remember very detailed.
Within the dream,
Yeah.
or outside the dream.
Well, to bring it up in my dreaming and then to remember it when I wake up. It's more of a meditative practice. To say, to prepare yourself to do that. Like if you go to sleep still gnashing your teeth about some random thing that happened that you're not that really interested in, you'll dream about it.
That's really interesting. Maybe,
but you can direct your dreams somewhat by prepping.
I'm gonna have to try that. It's really interesting. Like the interesting, not like what did this guy send in an email, kind of like stupid worry stuff, but like fundamental problems you're actually concerned about.
Yeah,
and prepping
and interesting things you're worried about, or books you're reading, or some great conversation you had, or some adventure you want to have. Like there's a lot of space there, and it seems to work. That my percentage of interesting dreams and memories went up